The pounding on the wrought iron gate echoed through the quiet evening like a threat. I froze, dish towel still in my hand, heart suddenly racing. My husband had just pulled into the driveway minutes earlier, and now uninvited voices rose from outside. "Open up, Claire. It's us. Your parents." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The sound of my mother's sharp voice after nearly 2 decades sent a jolt down my spine. For a moment, I thought I was hallucinating. My parents had cut me off, disowned me, and thrown me onto the streets at 19 because I'd chosen love over their carefully arranged expectations. They hadn't spoken a word to me in 18 years, and now they were at my gate? Behind the steel bars, I saw the silhouettes of several people. My parents, Richard and Sylvia, stood stiffly in their designer coats. My older brother, Daniel, leaned casually against the side of a black SUV, his smirk faintly visible in the glow of the headlights. The same smirk he wore the night they dragged my suitcase out and dumped it on the sidewalk. "Claire," my father barked, his voice heavy with command. "We want to meet your husband." "Open the gate." My knees locked. They had no idea who he really was. The thought sent a wave of cold, delicious electricity through me. For years, they mocked me for marrying beneath our status. They called my husband a nobody, a failure, a burden. But time has a way of flipping the script. I took a slow breath, steadied my hands and unlocked the gate. The hinges creaked as it swung open. And there they were. Faces I hadn't seen since I was a trembling teenager clutching a bag of clothes. Sylvia's lips parted in practiced disdain, scanning me from head to toe. "You've aged," she said coldly, as if 18 years had been a personal failure of mine. "Still stubborn as ever, I see," Richard added. "But at least you finally came to your senses." "Where is he?" Daniel snorted. "Yeah, where's this so-called husband you ruined your life for? We figured we should finally meet the man who made you throw away the best years of your youth." I didn't flinch this time. Instead, I stepped aside. My husband, Ethan, was already walking down the path from the carport, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a sharp-tailored suit. His silver cufflinks glinted under the porch light. He wasn't the skinny mechanic they had last seen, a boy with grease under his nails. Ethan looked every inch the man who now commanded boardrooms, signed deals worth millions, and had CEOs waiting for his call. But my parents didn't know that yet. When Ethan reached my side, he rested his hand gently on my back, the small gesture grounding me. His voice was calm, deep, and steady. "Claire, who's at the door?" The second his face came into full view, my mother gasped. My father's hand gripped the gate as though his balance had been stolen. Daniel's smirk vanished. "Ethan Reynolds?" My father hissed, his voice trembling. The air thickened with silence. Yes, Ethan Reynolds, the man they once spat on, laughed at, and called worthless, was now the billionaire their company desperately needed to survive. I tilted my chin, watching their carefully constructed arrogance crumble. "Meet my husband," I said softly, the words tasting like victory after 18 long years. And just like that, every face across from me went pale. The silence at the gate cut sharper than glass. For a long moment, no one breathed. My mother's perfectly painted lips quivered, her eyes darting between Ethan's face and his immaculate suit, as though trying to reconcile the man before her with the boy she had once dismissed as garage trash. Richard was the first to break. His voice cracked, though he fought to steady it. He swallowed hard. "You're Ethan Reynolds? The Ethan Reynolds?" Ethan didn't flinch. His eyes, calm but unyielding, fixed on Richard. "Yes, and you must be Richard Bennett. Still barking orders like the world owes you." My father's mouth opened, then shut, as though the words had been ripped from his throat. Daniel stepped forward, his arrogance faltering but not entirely gone. He forced a laugh, though it rang hollow. "So what, you reinvented yourself? Got lucky, huh? Must be nice having my sister bankroll your rise." That was Daniel. Always quick with venom, always blind to truth. But Ethan didn't even blink. Lucky? His voice was low, deliberate. I built everything with these two hands. While your family sneered, I was working 18-hour days, turning ideas into companies and failures into lessons. Claire stood by me when no one else did. She believed in me when your family slammed the door in her face. So no, Daniel, this isn't luck. This is grit. And loyalty. Something you wouldn't understand. Sylvia flinched as though slapped. I felt my throat tighten. My husband's words weren't just for them. They were for me, too. Every late night I stayed up with him while he pored over blueprints, every meal of cheap noodles we shared, every doubt we pushed through together. Suddenly, it all stood between us and them like a wall of truth. My father finally found his voice, though it was weaker than I'd ever heard. We didn't come here to argue. We came because we want to reconnect. We're family, after all, I laughed bitterly. The sound startled even me. Family? You called me a disgrace. You dragged me out of your house with nothing but a suitcase. You said I'd come crawling back begging for forgiveness when my nobody husband ruined my life. And now you show up at my gate because you've realized who he is? Sylvia tried to hold her composure, but her mask cracked. We made mistakes, Claire. Parents make mistakes. But it's been 18 years. Don't you think it's time to let go of the past? Her voice was smooth, almost rehearsed, like she had practiced the line in the mirror before driving here. Ethan stepped closer, his presence towering, his hand still steady against the small of my back. Let me make this clear. You didn't just make a mistake. You tried to destroy her. You left her stranded in the street like she was nothing. You looked her in the eye and told her she was no longer your daughter. Don't rewrite history because it's convenient now. Daniel's smirk had fully vanished. He was shifting uncomfortably, glancing back at the SUV as if wanting to retreat. But Richard wasn't done. His pride clung like rust to iron. Fine, we didn't handle things well. But surely you can see why we did it. We thought she deserved better than a boy with oil stains on his hands. We thought we were protecting her future. I took a step forward, my voice shaking but sharp. No, you weren't protecting me. You were protecting your image. You were terrified that people would see your daughter married to someone who worked in a garage. You didn't care about me. You cared about what the neighbors whispered. Sylvia's eyes flashed, but Ethan cut her off before she could speak. And yet, the man you spat on, the man you swore would amount to nothing, is the same man whose signature can now decide whether your company breathes or collapses. Isn't that ironic? That landed like a hammer. My father's face drained of color. Daniel stiffened, his jaw tightening. I realized then why they were here. Not for me. Not for reconciliation. But because Ethan Reynolds was no longer invisible. He was a storm that shook entire industries, and they needed him. Tell me the truth, I whispered, staring directly at my father. Why are you really here? Richard's eyes flickered. He hesitated, then let the mask fall. Fine, our company is in trouble. We thought maybe Ethan could help. For your family's sake. For your brother's future. The words hit me like ice water. There it was, the truth, ugly and raw. They hadn't come for me. They had come because they wanted something. My chest tightened with rage and sorrow, but my voice came out steady. So, 18 years later, after abandoning me, after humiliating me, you finally show up. Not because you love me, not because you regret what you did, but because you need money? Sylvia's lips trembled. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. Claire, she pleaded, her voice trembling now. Please, we're still your parents. We just want to talk. Can't you understand? Ethan stepped in front of me, his voice deep and final. You've done enough talking. Claire doesn't owe you a single thing. Not an explanation. Not forgiveness. And certainly not money. So if that's why you came here, turn around and leave. The gate seemed to vibrate under the weight of his words. For the first time in my life, I watched my father speechless. His hands shook on the metal bars. Daniel muttered something under his breath, but Ethan's sharp glance silenced him instantly. I stood taller than I ever had before. You told me I'd crawl back one day, but it looks like you're the ones crawling now." The silence that followed was suffocating. Their faces, once so full of superiority, were now pale, hollow, defeated. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't the scared girl they abandoned 18 years ago. I was stronger, and I had built a life worth more than their shallow pride. I took Ethan's hand and stepped back toward the house. "We're done here," I said quietly, before closing the gate with a final, echoing clang. Their pale faces lingered in my mind as I walked back into the warmth of my home. But instead of fear, I felt power. For the first time in 18 years, the past wasn't my burden. It was theirs. The clang of the gate closing should have ended everything. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. My parents weren't the kind of people to walk away quietly when their pride and money was on the line, and I was right. The next morning, as sunlight streamed across our kitchen, Ethan slid a thick envelope across the table. His expression was unreadable. "Claire, this came by courier." "No return address," I frowned, sliding a finger under the flap. Inside were legal papers, petitions, proposals, even desperate letters. At the very top, in my father's familiar handwriting, "We'll lose everything unless Ethan agrees to a meeting. This is our last chance. Don't let your stubbornness destroy what belongs to your family." My blood boiled. My family? They had erased me for 18 years, and suddenly I was their lifeline. Ethan leaned back, watching me. "They're cornered. Their company's collapsing. Their investors are pulling out. And now they think I'll be their savior?" I clenched my fists. "And will you?" His eyes darkened. "Claire, I would burn every dollar before letting them use you again. But this isn't just business. It's about you. What do you want?" The question sank deep. What did I want? Revenge? Forgiveness? Closure? That afternoon, the Bennetts returned, this time in daylight with desperation etched across every line of their faces. They didn't even bother with arrogance now. Richard's suit looked a little too loose. Sylvia's perfect hair sprayed too stiffly. Daniel pacing like a restless wolf. "Claire," my father started, his tone almost pleading, "we can't keep this up. The company will collapse within weeks. If Ethan steps in, even partially, it could save hundreds of employees. Families depend on us." The audacity of it made me tremble. Now they cared about families. 18 years ago, they hadn't cared about the one they destroyed. Ethan folded his arms, his voice sharp. "You're not asking for help. You're demanding it under the disguise of duty. But where was that duty when you threw your daughter into the street?" Sylvia's eyes brimmed with tears. Whether real or crafted, I couldn't tell. "We thought we were doing what was best." "We were wrong, please. Don't punish the innocent for our mistakes," Daniel broke in, his frustration exploding. "Enough of this guilt trip. Claire, don't act like you didn't benefit from Ethan's success. You got lucky. Stop pretending you built this with him. We need real negotiations, not your dramatics." The words hit like knives. But instead of bleeding, I laughed. A sharp, bitter laugh that made Daniel's smirk falter. "Lucky?" I stepped forward, meeting his glare head-on. I stood by Ethan when he had nothing. I worked nights, skipped meals, pawned my jewelry to keep us afloat while he fought for his dreams. That's not luck. That's loyalty. Something none of you understand. Ethan placed a steadying hand on my arm, but his jaw was tight. His patience was snapping. "Claire," he murmured, "you don't owe them a thing." Richard's voice cracked with panic. "Ethan, please. If not for us, think of the employees. The families who'll be ruined if the company falls." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "You're right. Innocent people shouldn't suffer because of your greed. But if I step in, it won't be for you. It will be to protect them. And make no mistake, you'll lose every ounce of control. You'll step aside permanently. Bennett Industries will no longer belong to the Bennetts." The silence that followed was suffocating. Sylvia's lips parted, her face pale as stone. Daniel looked like he'd been slapped. My father's knees seemed to weaken, but pride kept him upright. "You'd destroy us like that?" Ethan's voice was ice. "I'm not destroying you. I'm saving the company despite you. But you won't be part of it anymore. I turned to face them fully, my voice firm. You thought you could erase me, but I built a life stronger than anything you could have planned. You threw me away, and now you're standing here begging at my gate. That's not my burden. That's yours. Sylvia's tears finally spilled, streaking her carefully painted face. Richard stood frozen, gripping the iron bars as though they were the only thing keeping him upright. Daniel muttered curses under his breath, but even he knew the fight was lost. Ethan pulled me gently toward the house, his voice final. We'll have my lawyers draw up the terms. If you agree, the company survives. If not, then you can watch it burn. Either way, this ends on our terms, not yours. The clang of the gate echoed again as we walked away. Behind us, I could still hear my mother's trembling voice calling after me. Claire, please. We just wanted to see you again. But I didn't turn back. Not this time. 2 weeks later, the front page of every business magazine in the country carried the same headline. Reynolds Group acquires Bennett Industries. Founder steps down. The photo beneath it told the whole story. Ethan, standing tall in his dark suit, hand in hand with me. Behind us, my father and Daniel, faces pale, jaws tight, signing the documents that stripped them of their empire. It was over. But the war inside me wasn't finished. That night, as the city lights shimmered beyond our penthouse balcony, Ethan poured 2 glasses of wine. He set one in front of me, his expression softer than it had been in weeks. You did it, he said. You faced them. You stood taller than I've ever seen. I took the glass, staring out at the skyline. And yet, part of me feels empty. I thought I'd feel nothing but satisfaction. But seeing them broken like that? My voice trailed off. Ethan stepped closer, his hand warm against mine. Revenge doesn't erase scars, Claire. It just reminds us we survived. You don't need their approval. You never did, but you needed to see that they couldn't take your power anymore. His words hit me deep. For 18 years, I carried their rejection like a shadow. Tonight, for the first time, I felt the weight lifting. But the story wasn't finished. The very next morning, my phone buzzed with a call I almost ignored. When I saw the name, Sylvia Bennett, my chest tightened. Against my better judgment, I answered. Claire? Her voice cracked through the line, trembling in a way I'd never heard. We lost everything. The house, the cars. Even the staff left. Your father's health is failing. Daniel's vanished. I don't know where else to turn. For a moment, I didn't speak. Memories crashed in, her voice cold as she shoved me out the door, her eyes hard as stone when she told me I wasn't her daughter anymore. And now, the same woman was begging. I don't hate you, Mom, I said finally, my voice steady. But you need to understand. You made your choice 18 years ago. And so did I. I built a life without you. And I don't need to look back. Her sobs broke through the line, but I ended the call. My hand trembled, but my heart felt lighter. For the first time, I wasn't the abandoned girl begging for love. I was the woman who had chosen her own worth. That evening, Ethan came into the room holding an envelope. He handed it to me quietly. Inside was a deed to the old Bennett estate, the mansion where my childhood had been both gilded and suffocating. They put it up for auction, Ethan said. I bought it. For you. I stared at the papers, the weight of history pressing down on me. Why would I want that place? Ethan's eyes were kind but firm. Because it's not theirs anymore. It's yours. You can burn it down, sell it, or rebuild it into something better. But it'll be your choice. Not theirs. Tears pricked my eyes. For 18 years, that house had been the symbol of rejection, of pain. Now, it was in my hands. 2 months later, I stood in the grand hall of that mansion, not alone, but surrounded by people who mattered. Former employees of Bennett Industries, families who had feared losing their livelihoods, now secure under Reynolds Group's wing. Ethan stood beside me, our children in the front row, wide-eyed but proud. I raised my voice, letting it echo through the same walls that once silenced me. This house used to represent pride, arrogance, and rejection. Today it represents second chances. Not for them, but for all of you, the ones who deserved better all along. Applause thundered through the room. For the first time, I felt peace. Later that night, when the guests had gone, Ethan wrapped his arm around me on the balcony. "How does it feel?" he asked softly. I leaned into him, my heart steady. "It feels like I finally closed the door they slammed in my face. Only this time, I locked it for good." And as the city lights stretched before us, I realized something. Revenge hadn't just been about watching them fall. It was about reclaiming my voice, my worth, my life. And in the end, I hadn't just won. I had risen. The girl they threw away was gone forever. All that remained was the woman they could never break.